Hi there and welcome to a new episode of Startup Chuck. So today we're going to be talking about how to do a photo shoot. Now since you have a prototype of your project complete, it's about time that you start getting photos in order to start selling your product. So let's talk about the different things that you can use in order to produce some pretty decent photos for your product. First, I want to talk about our sponsor, which is Chuck Rack. And they're a great ski and bike rack company. Currently, they're selling their Chuck Bucket for the winter. And if you like their product, please go and order one. All right, so now let's talk about photos. So in order to get good product photos, if you're doing small things, honestly, the best thing you can do is buy a photo box. This little light box is really inexpensive and it makes a huge difference in getting even lighting and no shadows on your product. And that's kind of a big deal because if you end up with large shadows, then it just isn't going to look as good. And so most products that you see out there end up having some sort of even lighting around it. And you can do that with natural lighting, but it's really nice if you can control it a bit better. So again, small items, a light box is really good. Let's take an example of my banana bopper that I had at one point in time. Let me pull that up. So here's the banana bopper. And then you can see there's a little bit of a hot spot here on this side and right here as well. But other than that, it's very clean and even. And then the photos actually that we did, I hired a photographer for this. That was a friend. And she did a great job. Super nice natural lighting. And we took a whole bunch of photos. And it really worked out. But what seems really easy actually took a fair amount of work. And so there's a lot of things to think about. So for example, your main image on Amazon, it has to have a pure white background, either like this or like this, where there is nothing else around it. And then it can't show anything else that can confuse the customer what's in there. So if you want to have a product that's on Amazon, most people eventually may. Nonetheless, you want to have something that you can easily do a white background on. It's a lot easier to subtract a white background if you start with something that has very low shadows and then go from there. And then the rest of your photos can be things that have people and showing use cases, etc. So nice clean background for Amazon is one thing. Another thing is pick a likely place where your product will be used. So in this case, we're in the kitchen and opening your banana, putting it in the dishwasher, etc. Now, okay, if you're using natural lighting, you got to think about a few different things, which is the time of day that you're doing it. Do you need any extra lighting? You can get lighting stands fairly inexpensive. If you're outside, you can get just reflective sheets of foil to give it more natural lighting and reflect it back towards where you're trying to take your photo of. Another thing is who's going to be in your photo shoot. So if it's not somebody that you have a great relationship, you should probably have them sign a release because you don't want to have them making any claims that they don't want to be in it and then later on you can't use their photos anymore. And so that's something that you want to consider is having some release papers, printed up. You can find things online on generic ones and then basically have people sign them just saying, hey, I'm okay with my photo being in your product. Another thing is a shot list. So it seems like, okay, I want to have a shot that shows it being in the dishwasher. I want another shot that shows somebody trying hard to open it and then, handing the product to the customer and then they use it and it's great and it's easy to open. That's a very simple thing is think about who's my customer, how might they be using this, and just sketch out on paper first in words and then maybe with a drawing, like stick figures, for example, showing how you want each shot to be so that you don't forget about any shots that you want to have. There's a lot of prep that you can have before the photo shoot to make sure the photo shoot is as useful as possible because the last thing you want to do is show up to your photo shoot and you have a photographer there and you have a limited amount of time and you don't know what shots you want to get. And you may not end up getting the ones that you thought about 3 days earlier in the shower. And so you want to make sure that you actually take the time to prep your shot list ahead of time. So that way, when you're in the photo shoot and you're all excited in the heat of the moment, that you can then go back through your shot list and you can say, oh, this one, that one, etc. And it doesn't even have to be product things you sketch up. You could find example photos of similar products online and just put them in your shot list as, I want, something that looks just like this. And then that way, you have that example, and it's really good because it's exactly what someone else had done, right? Bank off of other people's work. Let's see here. For your shot list, think about your different targets and demographics. You might have different advertising going to different groups. You might have one group that's really interested in one aspect. So take the Chuck Bucket, for example. You can have people who are really interested in golfing, and you could try and have a bunch of photos around golf bag uses and golfing and etc. And then you can have a whole bunch of people who are really interested in skiing, and you have a whole bunch of photos for skiers, and then another group might be snowboarders, etc. And so it's good to think about each different demographic that you're trying to, or market group you're trying to sell to, and have different shot lists for each of those, because you don't want to constantly be moving skis into it and then take them off, and then move snowboards into it and then take them off, and then forgot you want to get another shot with the skis. Being efficient is really important in your photo shoots. In terms of equipment, so if you're just doing, for example, the light box. So here, for example, is a tripod with my camera and the light box, and then I literally just stuck this rolling pin that I'll start selling on Etsy soon in there. And you don't really need, a whole lot more than that. You can have your kitchen table, right? Or wherever you plan on using this. And yeah, it's funny, right? You get a close-up photo and it looks like this, kind of staged. What people never see is that the rest of it looks cluttered in the background, but who cares? You're going to crop that down, right? It's all about having, the functional photo that you can crop down that you can get to. For our shoot for the Chuck Bucket the other day, we basically, didn't have perfect lighting, but you could raise the levels up, in post-processing. The important thing is we actually have very few shadows in these photos, which is really important. Is not having a ton of shadows is nice. And then, so golden hour is a great time to do this in the evening, right when the lighting is kind of flat. And then you can just take, decent high-res photos and then increase the gain on them. Or, increase your exposure during the time. And then, never can have too many photos. You might have one actual photographer, but then maybe you have, other people shooting on their phone, and you never know who's going to get a better photo. It doesn't hurt to have too many photos. So let's see here. So what other equipment? Tripods, cameras, extra batteries, memory cards. One thing that makes a big difference, clean clothes. So, these clothes were new for this shoot. So it makes it so they're nice and crisp, and it makes it seem like the product is nice and clean. So clean clothes, washed cars, clean tables, brushed teeth, brushed hair, etc. Make the people who are using your product attractive, and then that will, make your product look attractive. And then plan on lots of takes. The better you do a good shot list, the less often you'll have to redo photos. But, be prepared that it might take another time out to go back out and get a photo just the way you want. You might be slightly off in what you had. And then if you, oh, this is a big one. If you are going to ever print banners, like large banners for booths or for trade shows, and I'm going to have a whole nother episode on how to do trade shows, you want to have as high resolution photo as possible, because if you have any photos that are low resolution or grainy, when you blow them up to 8 foot by 10 foot, they're going to be noticeable, and you're going to notice that graininess in those photos. So higher resolution is definitely worth it when you are eventually going to use some photos for banners and things like that. And then last but not least is basically like B-roll footage is great during photo shoots, so you can use that on Instagram and TikTok and all those things for your social media for your products, which is great. People like seeing processes. And then how to find a photographer is kind of the last thing I'm going to speak about. So I mentioned earlier that you have a few options for photographers. You can try and find, most people have a friend who's a photographer, whether professional or amateur. You can ask a professional friend photographer what their rate is, and maybe they'll give you a friend rate. You can find, usually most amateur photographers are really interested in trying to show their skill, and they're really excited to help you out with your project. They're going to be missing a lot of, or maybe half of the skills that a professional photographer would have picked up over the years. So you might not get as good of shots as you would get with a professional photographer. You probably won't get as good of shots as you would with a professional photographer. You're paying them for their years of experience of knowing exactly how to frame up shots and get the lighting good, and then also their secondary editing. And then last thing you can do is, of course, just try and put a posting out in newsletters, Craigslist, things like that, and try and find somebody who would be willing to work with you. There's probably lots of product photographers around you and you just don't know it. You just have to go out there and look. So that's my episode on photo shoots. There's not really a ton involved, but the biggest thing I would say again is plan your shot list and really try and make it thorough before you go out. And not only that, a thorough shot list, and then also having a thorough list of items to bring with you will save you a lot of headache. If you know all the items that you need to bring with you, then you won't forget something that's important on the photo shoot. You wouldn't want to get all the way to the photo shoot and realize you actually forgot the product. You had everything else, but you forgot to bring the product, or you only brought one. And so again, having that thorough shot list and that thorough list of items to bring will really help you out in the long run. Plus, you might find out you need multiple cars to bring things to places, etc. All right. If you like what you heard, please like and subscribe. Check out all the rest of the other videos on Startup Chuck, and I'll see you guys next time.